What are the consequences of climate change on the planet's future? Climate change is already having a wide range of consequences on the planet, and these consequences are likely to become more severe in the future if we don't take action to mitigate them. Here are some of the key consequences of climate change that are likely to affect the planet's future. Rising temperatures. Global temperatures have already risen by about 1 degree Celsius since the pre-industrial era, and are projected to continue rising in the coming decades. This will lead to a range of impacts, including more frequent and severe heat waves, droughts, and wildfires. Sea level rise. As global temperatures rise, glaciers and ice sheets are melting, causing sea levels to rise. This will lead to more frequent and severe flooding, particularly in coastal areas and low-lying islands. Changes in precipitation patterns. Climate change is also altering precipitation patterns, with some regions experiencing more frequent and severe droughts, while others are experiencing more frequent and severe floods. Impacts on ecosystems. Climate change is having a wide range of impacts on ecosystems around the world, including changes in the distribution and abundance of plant and animal species, and increased risks of extinction. Impacts on human health. Climate change is also affecting human health, with increased risks of heat-related illnesses, respiratory problems from air pollution, and the spread of infectious diseases. Economic impacts. Climate change is expected to have significant economic impacts, including damage to infrastructure, disruptions to agriculture and fisheries, and increased costs for disaster response and insurance. Overall, the consequences of climate change on the planet's future are likely to be significant and far-reaching. The extent of these consequences will depend on how quickly and effectively we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and take other actions to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Rising temperatures. As global temperatures continue to rise, we can expect to see more frequent and severe heat waves, droughts, and wildfires. These events can cause significant damage to crops, infrastructure, and human health, as well as exacerbating existing water scarcity issues. Sea level rise. As glaciers and ice sheets continue to melt, we can expect to see more frequent and severe coastal flooding and erosion. This could cause significant damage to homes, businesses, and infrastructure in coastal areas, as well as leading to the displacement of people living in low-lying areas. Changes in precipitation patterns. Climate change is expected to lead to changes in precipitation patterns, with some regions experiencing more frequent and severe droughts, while others are experiencing more frequent and severe floods. This could cause significant disruptions to agriculture and water supplies, as well as leading to more frequent and severe natural disasters such as hurricanes and typhoons. Impacts on ecosystems. Climate change is already having significant impacts on ecosystems around the world, with changes in the timing of seasonal events, shifts in species ranges, and increased risks of extinction. These impacts can have significant consequences for biodiversity, ecosystem services, and human well-being. Impacts on human health. Climate change is expected to have a wide range of impacts on human health, including increased risks of heat-related illnesses, respiratory problems from air pollution, and the spread of infectious diseases. These impacts could lead to increased mortality and morbidity, particularly in vulnerable populations. Economic impacts. The economic impacts of climate change are expected to be significant, with damage to infrastructure, disruptions to agriculture and fisheries, and increased costs for disaster response and insurance. These impacts could be felt across all sectors of the economy, and could lead to significant losses in GDP in some regions. Overall, the consequences of climate change on the planet's future are likely to be complex and far-reaching. However, it's important to remember that there are actions we can take to mitigate these impacts, such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions, investing in renewable energy, and adapting to the changing climate. By taking these actions, we can help to ensure a more sustainable and resilient future for our planet and its inhabitants. Rising sea levels. As sea levels continue to rise, there is an increased risk of coastal flooding, especially during storm surges and high tides. This could lead to the destruction of homes, infrastructure, and businesses, as well as the displacement of people living in low-lying areas. In addition, saltwater intrusion could contaminate freshwater resources, affecting agricultural and drinking water supplies. Melting glaciers and ice sheets. Melting glaciers and ice sheets are contributing to rising sea levels, but they also have other impacts. For example, they can affect ocean currents and weather patterns, and the loss of ice in polar regions could lead to significant changes in ecosystems and biodiversity. Changes in agriculture and food security. Climate change is expected to have significant impacts on agriculture and food security, with changing precipitation patterns and increased frequency of extreme weather events affecting crop yields and livestock production. This could lead to food shortages, price increases, and malnutrition, particularly in developing countries. Impacts on infrastructure. Climate change could lead to significant damage to infrastructure, such as roads, bridges, buildings, and water treatment plants. This could cause significant economic costs, as well as affecting access to essential services such as healthcare and education. Impacts on biodiversity. Climate change is already having significant impacts on biodiversity, with changes in species distributions and declines in populations. This could lead to the loss of ecosystem services, such as pollination and pest control, as well as affecting human well-being through reduced access to natural resources and recreational opportunities. Migration and displacement. As climate change leads to more frequent and severe natural disasters and affects the availability of natural resources, it could lead to increased migration and displacement of people. This could exacerbate existing social and economic inequalities and lead to conflicts over resources. Overall, the consequences of climate change are complex and multifaceted, affecting a wide range of systems and sectors. However, by taking action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the changing climate, we can help to mitigate some of these impacts and create a more sustainable and resilient future for our planet. Ocean acidification. As carbon dioxide is absorbed by the oceans, it causes the pH level to decrease, leading to ocean acidification. This can have significant impacts on marine ecosystems, affecting the growth and survival of organisms such as corals, shellfish, and plankton. This, in turn, can affect the food webs and biodiversity of ocean ecosystems, as well as the fishing industry. Extreme weather events. Climate change is expected to increase the frequency and severity of extreme weather events such as hurricanes, floods, droughts, and wildfires. These events can have significant impacts on human health, infrastructure, agriculture, and natural ecosystems, causing billions of dollars in damages and displacing millions of people. Loss of Arctic sea ice. The Arctic is experiencing some of the most rapid effects of climate change, with significant loss of sea ice over the past few decades. This has significant consequences for the Arctic ecosystem, including impacts on species such as polar bears and walruses, as well as the indigenous communities that rely on the Arctic for their livelihoods. Changes in water availability. Climate change is expected to affect the availability of water resources, with some regions experiencing more frequent and severe droughts, while others experiencing more frequent and severe floods. This could have significant impacts on agriculture, energy production, and human health and well-being. Impacts on tourism. Climate change is already affecting the tourism industry, with changes in weather patterns, rising sea levels, and increased frequency of natural disasters affecting popular tourist destinations. This could have significant economic impacts, particularly in countries that rely heavily on tourism for their economies. Impacts on social and economic inequalities. Climate change could exacerbate existing social and economic inequalities, affecting vulnerable populations such as low-income communities, indigenous peoples, and marginalized groups. This could lead to increased poverty, food insecurity, and health disparities, as well as social and political unrest. In conclusion, the consequences of climate change on the planet's future are diverse and complex, affecting a wide range of systems and sectors. Addressing climate change will require a comprehensive and coordinated global response, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions, adapting to the changing climate, and investing in sustainable development. By taking action now, we can help to mitigate some of the worst impacts of climate change and ensure a more sustainable and resilient future for our planet and its inhabitants.